Hey guys, welcome to Module 3. I just wanted to do a quick highlight of what we uh, learned last week and its applicability to um, understanding local government, and then I'm going to just spend a couple of minutes here talking about where we're headed here in Module 3. Now in Module 2, you examined a couple different things. You looked at the various programs and services that municipal government provides. Those can be in the form of your Parks and Recreation Department. Maybe they have some after-school programs. Your library, maybe they have courses teaching English as a second language. Um, you have your police departments, and maybe they have programs dealing with crime prevention or ways to minimize identity theft. Um, an array of things that local government provides. So you guys did a good job in examining those types of programs and services that cities provide. Um, then you also identified those programs and services that you thought were more important. And that's critical because cities offer an array of programs to its citizens. And so trying to identify which of those programs is more important than the other, if anything, you'll learn that it's not that easy. Many of you did a great job in identifying programs and services that some of us may not have thought about, whether it be human services, or whether it be finance or public works. Oftentimes we think of public safety as important, but a lot of you guys were thinking something a little differently. And that's good because it engages your classmates into further discussion on the different programs and services that municipal government provides. But I think all of you sort of keyed in on the fact that all of them are important. In other words, all of them make for a cohesive community and city government services, and that's true. And during times when there are sufficient funds to operate these programs, it's great. The problem becomes when, for whatever reason, revenue falls short of expenditures, and now cities and local governments need to figure out how they're going to address that. Okay, so there are challenges, and those challenges are funding programs and services. I offer this week in Module 3, there's an article I posted, and I'm trying to remember where it was. It was in Illinois, and I don't recall the exact city, but the program, the article talks about how local elected leaders are going to have to deal with this idea of the high costs associated with public service pensions. In other words, police and fire department pensions and retirement benefits that those personnel receive. And a lot of cities are beginning to face this. So, if you're looking at how do you fund these programs, how do you take care of your employees after they've left and retired, there's only a couple things one can do. It's either you can raise taxes, or you can reduce services throughout the city and use that money that you saved in reducing services and tie it to your retirement or pension system. So that is a real concern among many cities and counties. And so hopefully you'll have time to read that article in Module 3. But that just gives you the idea of some of the challenges that our municipal leaders are going to be facing. Because remember, raising taxes is a hard pill to swallow. And the public might put up with it for so long, but after a while, the public is not going to put up with it. And so as a elected leader or an appointed employee of the city, such as police chief, fire chief, or finance director, or city manager, you're going to have to find ways to do more with less and still provide the services that your community expects. Okay, so that was the first part of last week. You guys did a great job in looking at those different types of programs and which programs you thought might be more important than the others. So that's important. I mean, those are real decisions that have to be made annually and usually at budget time when cities begin to evaluate programs and services and if certain programs need to continue, or do you need to provide other programs and services, and if so, how are you going to fund those programs and services. The short paper that you did last week dealt with the decision-making process used in deciding the future of programs and services. And this is really the crux of the issue when cities are facing a decline in revenue, and now you need to evaluate your programs and services and how you're going to go about reducing a program or eliminating a program. And so I provided you some guidelines there in some of the basic steps that cities should at least be taking in terms of trying to figure out this decision-making process. And one of the key things I want you to walk away with from this assignment is never underestimate your constituents. Never underestimate the community and the needs of the community as you go through this decision-making process. Citizens need to be heard. Now, you may not pay attention, I don't want to say attention, but the public may provide their input, but you as a leader, a civic leader, may realize that you still need to go down this particular path. At least you gave people an option to be heard. And then as long as your reasoning is sound, I think, eventually the dust will settle. But your reasoning has to be sound. And that's where it's important to have people who understand the dollars and cents of local government and where that money is coming from and where that money is going. People need to understand that as part of this decision-making process, okay? An example I gave you was school buses, and that's not an uncommon thing. Every fiscal year you'll find some school district debating whether or not they should provide school bus services anymore. In most instances, providing those services is not mandated by state law. So it's just been a service that has been provided by school districts for a long time. So those are the kind of things that require public input, maybe some modification, maybe not totally eliminating school bus services, but maybe somehow modifying those who are eligible to ride school buses. So it can be complicated, very heated topic. Obviously, anytime you're talking about kids, schools, and moms and dads, you're going to have community input, and you're going to have people that may or may not be happy with the decision made. But again, you need to provide the community with that voice so that you can evaluate how best to proceed with your decision-making process. And the other side of the thing is, of course, citizens don't want you to raise any taxes. So figure out how to do it, but don't raise my taxes. And that becomes a challenge for leaders. So hopefully you were able to realize that those exercises have some everyday applicability to those involved in running local government. You can see that those decisions aren't always the easiest decisions that have to be made, but those are tough decisions that need to be addressed by many municipalities as we get moving along. Other things that are popping up over the future, I think, in terms of funding for programs and services, not only pensions for public safety employees, but other municipal employees. A lot of infrastructure issues exist in many cities. Sewer lines, water lines, those type of things. Those things need to be addressed. Infrastructure, bridges, tunnels, all of those things that for whatever reason local government has sort of ignored for a long time, those things are now beginning to raise their head. So cities have to begin to think about how you're going to address those as you begin to move forward. And then, like I said, I think it's important to provide community input. And then if you do have to increase fees, do it in a way that the public can swallow that. Otherwise, you're going to run into some problems. Okay. So that's it. This coming up week, we're going to be looking at finance. So you're going to be looking at the role of the city treasurer, or maybe it's a finance director, whoever holds the purse strings. We're going to be looking at this coming up week. You need to understand where your city gets its money and what happens if one of those funding sources gets interrupted. All right. And if you understand where your money comes from, you'll have a better idea as to what the cities need to do to maintain that funding stream. So you're going to be looking at the role of the city treasurer or finance director, but I can discuss that in my short module lecture this week. So you understand the importance of these positions in terms of they need to have their hands on the pulse of state finances, federal finances, trends and patterns that are associated with money, so that they can make a determination as to whether or not revenues are going to exceed or meet expectations. And then this whole idea of balancing the needs of the community while holding the budget line. And that's just the nature of the beast. There are some groups that want the cities to maintain a tight rein on budget, don't overspend. Others want to maintain services and or expand services. So these are the two groups that you deal with all the time in terms of how do you provide those services to local residents. Okay, so this week, again, we'll be looking at the finances a little bit harder. So look at the resources. I think this week you need to read chapter 6, which is dealing with finance. Outside of that, happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there and their families. And I will see you guys in Brightspace, and I look forward to reading your thoughts this week on our discussion boards. Thanks, guys. Bye.